So I think I figured it out. According to the mainstream logic. Now, if all black people are thugs, black people who do dumb shit, if they're thugs, according to the mainstream narrative, and if Muslims, all Muslims who do terrible stuff, if they are all terrorists, and all so-called white people that do terrible things are mentally ill, then that means that all of the terrible stuff that's done by the government, all the terrible stuff that's been done in the previous days in our history, colonialism, gentrification, white supremacy, is because they have a mental illness. So, on top of that, if the people claiming, the people who are in charge of the mainstream media, the ones putting the labels on so-called black people and Muslims are mentally ill people, because the same people who run the government run the mainstream media. They run your university systems. They run the dialogue. They run the narrative of Hollywood, of television. So we are underneath a mentally ill cloud of mind control. And the thugs of our society are only really thugs because they are subjected to a mentally ill society. The so-called terrorists of our society are only really terrorists because they are subjected to a mentally ill society. The same mentally ill society that thinks war brings peace, that imprisons the entire population of melanated people, completely, genocides an entire race of people in Australia, Native America, South America, Papua New Guinea. The list goes on and on and on of the genocides and the massacres carried out by mentally ill people. The labels that are generated to distract from this mental illness are labels like thugs and terrorists. And as long as you have more thugs and terrorists out there in the mainstream focus, then nobody will really pay attention to the mental illness. This is all according to the mainstream logic. Of course, that's an oxymoron in itself. There is no logic to the mainstream because it's all mind control. But when you look at the deceptions of heliocentrism, white supremacy, the illusion of authority, the public education system, the criminalizing of plants like cannabis, psilocybin mushrooms, ayahuasca, and the list goes on, and the decriminalizing or actual amplification of prescription drugs, actual poisons, alcohol, cigarettes, you will realize that you are underneath a mentally ill society. This Las Vegas shooting, supposed massacre, and so on and so forth. The first thing I heard was, The worst shooting in U.S. history. The worst massacre in U.S. history. And then on the radio last night, I heard the worst shooting in modern U.S. history. Oh, you have to change it now. Why? Because there was too much pushback on the legalized mentally ill perspectives not that long ago. Not that long ago, it was legal to lynch a so-called black person because you assumed that they did something. And you wouldn't get prosecuted for that. See, when I address a lot of these issues, the way I address them, I still get comments in the comment section where people have difficulty with me addressing the race issue. And no matter how deep I go into it, explaining where I'm coming from, I'm not the one who invented white supremacy. I'm not the one who invented this illusion of authority. I didn't invent the White House. I didn't, make the call for people to go down to Australia and completely genocide an entire race of people and take over the land. I didn't make the call to send Christopher Columbus, the Spanish, the French, the British Empire over to the so-called New World and genocide and massacre the Native Americans. I didn't make that call. Your ancestors made that call. Until we realize the mental illness behind particular ancestors making those calls, we're not going to really change anything. Because their design is to make you not realize that mental illness. See, what happens is when you, as a melanated individual or a non-white individual, very generally speaking in melanated terms, obviously melanin is more broad than that, but I don't like using terms like black and white, that's why I had to say so-called, so I say melanated. When you have people, melanated people, who reference the race agenda, the racial existence that's going on, the alchemy that exists right now. If you mention it, it stirs up too much uncomfortableness for people. Why? Because the mainstream dialogue is designed to avoid it. That is the mental programming. That is the mental illness. The status quo is to ignore that information in order to maintain the foundation of the Western society as we see it today. People who have watched my channel for however long know I don't have a problem with any one individual, especially depending on their race. It's just ridiculous to generalize that far. But that doesn't take away from the fact that particular groups of people act a certain way when you reference race. And that action, that reaction, when that storyline is brought up, is not a mistake. It's not because you're better people and so on and so forth. This is a mind control reaction that's meant on purpose. Because if you go into the depths of understanding that, the storylines of that, if you actually start reading the books, in quotation marks, just researching the history of it, You will see. And you don't need a lot of research, like the stuff that I just named off. Right now, your modern society right now, where they were so up in arms about the apparent largest massacre in modern history. Your modern society was built on genocide and massacres. And you think people are going to be surprised that it's continuing on today? Or at least the illusion of that is continuing on today to maintain power over you? To maintain this illusion of authority? So you can see how all of these storylines that exist to protect this system are a reflection of the foundations of this system. And when I reference these storylines of colonialism, Western society as a whole, that includes the racial so-called cleansing of the primitive and savage people in the so-called New World. They are going into Iraq and Iran, Syria, Libya for what? Resources. What do you think they were doing when they came to the abundant lands of the Native Americans? Oh, they were just settling. They were on a pilgrimage. No. It's the same mechanism. They were looking for land to control, resources to control by any means necessary. Their empire is threatened when an entire continent of people are living together, not perfectly, but living together with the amount of resources that we have here in the Americas. This is why they have to call the United States of America, America. No. When you call the Americas, then you realize the Americas is darker than the damn soil itself. But in order to maintain the mind control of power, they have to tell you that they brought people, they brought the slaves over. Any black people in America are African Americans. We brought you over here. We did. The reason why you're in the New World is because we brought you here. Yeah, we enslaved you, but look, now you have a computer. What are you, ungrateful? These are the storylines people don't want to look at. They don't want to talk about that shit. They just want to move on. You're still talking about slavery? You're still talking about genocide? We have a tablet. I have an iPod, a laptop. You should just move on. Today's society is about innovation. See, I mention any of this stuff. These are mechanisms. This is alchemy. This is like I don't know. I try to find so many ways to explain this shit. So, in a baseball game, in a 7-game series, the World Series, in a World Series game, people are trying to win the games by hitting home runs, making base hits, stealing bases, bunting, making good defensive plays. All of these various aspects of the game that make up the game are parts of the game. And then at the end of the game, one team wins that game. And then you have 7 of those games. So all these different types of ways that you can win the game are part of the World Series. So, for example, people know about baseball. You go over to play baseball in China. You know they play small ball. They bunt. They do all kinds of shit. They hit base hits. They steal bases. They do all kinds of stuff. Whereas in America, the United States of America, it's all about, home runs, big trucks and hot dogs and beer. Hit the ball out of the damn city. Don't hit it out of the park. Hit it out the city. That's that mentality. In order for their mentality to win the game. Ultimately, they don't really care about really winning the game as long as they look good. It's the ego. But you have strategy of like winning the series, winning the games. Not talking about racism, which is a part of the game, a part of winning the World Series, is like saying that bunting doesn't matter. Bunting doesn't matter. What do you mean? Stop talking about bunting. We're talking about, the World Series here, okay? No, but you go play baseball in China. How many runs are scored because of those bunts? How many bases are stolen because of those bunts? How much of the emotional effect did those bunts have on people? Because they just keep bunting, they just keep stealing, they just keep playing this small ball. I used to be a pitcher, so I know. Shit pisses you off when people can't make plays off of little stupid ass bunts. You're throwing a 92-mile-an-hour fastball. A curveball that drops off of the damn table. And this little shit bunts the ball and scores the winning run, or moves the runner into scoring position from a bunt. Now, actually, racism in relation to a bunt, that's downplaying it. Calling racism a bunt is actually downplaying it, in my perspective. But to not offend people who still have difficulty seeing this shit, I'll do that. Because it's a good example of what's going on here. See all these little memes that you're seeing right now, these little actions, these little individuals. It's not murder if they're black. This is a thug. That's a terrorist. And this is a mentally ill individual. Those are bunts. Those are people on base. Those are runners in scoring position. And those are runs on the board. Constantly getting these runs on the board. See, while people think that they're playing, long ball, this system is actually playing small ball. It's a strategy. It's a chess game. They play dumb on television in order to maintain the illusion that they have the authority and that they are smart. If they play down everybody, if they make everybody dumb, then you don't have to be that smart to rule over people. You don't. You just have to be just a little bit smarter than the dumb masses that you've put out there. This is why everything is dumbed down with comedy. This is why you are desensitized with comedy, with Hollywood, with your relationships, with your culture, with your food, with your water, with your education. Everything is dumbing you down and desensitizing you. And as long as you're in that dumbed down, desensitized state of being, you can't make any rational, spiritually, intellectually, or physically rational decisions with your life. Because your life, your perspectives, your so-called critical thought is not yours. It's based upon a society that's been systematically dumbed down. That plays small ball every day. They're taking this shit one day at a time. Why do you think every day it's all focused on Trump, 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 Trump? What did Trump do? That's just dumb, 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 dumb. What did dumb do? Every day, something dumb. To make you think that it's kind of like the polar opposite of the hope that was installed in with Obama. Obama was active hope in your reality. He was positive hope. It was in your face. So it was another version of dumbing you down. You didn't do anything because your hope was in the individual, the smartest, the most reliable, apparently reliable, believable president out there. So that was a way of dumbing you down after the dumbass George Bush. Now you have the polar opposite of that. And that hope space needs to be filled by the system itself, the society. Because you have no structure. You have nothing to lean on with your so-called president. Now you have to have the hope built up by comedians. Comedians, little politicians here and there that give you a little sprinkle of hope. TYT, the so-called aggressive progressives. Alex Jones, they are the gap fillers. They are the gap fillers for the emptiness that you now have. And Trump maintains the distraction and hopelessness because what are you going to do? You did what your so-called leaders told you to do. You voted, as if it matters in the first place. You voted, and look what happened. The top 10 worst individual on the face of this earth is in charge of the so-called free world. This is the mainstream narrative. This is their logic. When I reference this logic, when I reference this information, it's just to reference it. It's not my belief system. This is not my... just because I talk about this existing, and people, this is the thing. People see me talking about this stuff, they automatically think that that's like what I think about every day. No, that's who I am. I talk about this shit because this information is the core to the illusory authority that is installed into the masses every day. So when I reference this stuff and people are like, I'm going to unsubscribe, you're a racist. That same mentality is the same mentality that allows this racism to continue. Because it's not going to just fix itself. It's not going to heal itself. It's not going to just go away. You're going to eventually have to speak about this information. You're going to have to address this information. Because what it really boils down to is, obviously, race is more complex than what it's being promoted by the mainstream media. Obviously, not everybody who is white is a racist. And not everybody who's black is a thug. And not everybody who's a Muslim is a terrorist. But when you watch the television, when you listen to the mainstream narrative, these mechanisms are being tuned into your reality. It's actively engaged in your reality. You are being programmed to think and act a certain way. And people who are not aware of that are thinking and acting the way they are being programmed. The information that I'm sharing right now in reference to this is not for the people who already know this. It's not for the people who are aware of this. It's for the people who don't know about this shit. Who think that the way things are in the mainstream narrative is just business as usual, as if it's just like the same way that society tells you that humanity as it exists today is just a product of evolving from monkeys to what we are today. It just is what it is. That's what they want you to think, and leave it there. They don't want you to look in the strategy. They don't want you to look at all the bunts that have been made. They don't want you to break down the strategy of the system. They want you to be consumed by the superhero program of who wins the World Series. Is it going to be the villain or is it the superhero? As long as you are consumed by the superhero movie, you will never be able to disassemble the strategy of the system itself. Racism, as it's promoted by the mainstream media, by society today, as much as all the people who call themselves woke and all this other shit want to act like it doesn't exist, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it might not matter for you because you have processed all of that nonsense and you see it for what it is. And then you hopefully go into the depths of what it really is instead of just leaving it there. But the point being is that the system itself, who's running this league, the series itself, they very much do know the power of bunting. They know how many runs they need. They know what they need to do. Right now they're playing small ball, and they've always been playing small ball. When they do things like 9/11, these so-called massacres, the war on terrorism, that's their version of a triple, an extra base hit, possibly a home run. 9/11 was like a home run for them. Because what happened? They not only sent the United States to war, but they generated an entire war, an entire villain. ISIS, the Taliban, Osama bin Laden, the Muslim mentality of terrorism. They formalized it. They were already pre-programming it with all the movies. What's that movie? The Siege? Look at the movie The Siege with, I think it was Denzel Washington. That was before 9/11. Look at all these movies that are out there programming you to think and act a certain way. They are putting players on the base, on the bases, so they can hit that home run. All these little so-called terrorists, Sandy Hooks, Las Vegas, so on and so forth, they're putting runners on the bases. They're putting runners in scoring position. So when it is time to hit that extra base hit or that home run, they have all these other runs that come in at the same time. And what I'm saying is, when I mention stuff like racism, you're going into the strategy. You're going into their strategy. That's the strategy of the chess game. Now, if you want to play, just watch the game. If you just want to watch the game, or you want to wait for the home runs and, show how smart you are because, they swung this way, or maybe it was a fake home run. Oh, that's not even a real home run. The pitcher didn't pitch a real ball. It was a hologram. And they hit it out the park. But are the runs still on the board? You bet your ass they are. They still scored them runs. People still think that side is winning. All of this, I don't know how long I go on with this. It's ridiculous. Point being, racism as a weapon is a strategy. Heliocentrism as a weapon is a strategy. False flags as a weapon is a strategy. If you're not disassembling the strategy, if you get caught up in the movie line of the strategy, then you won't realize the mechanism of the strategy in the entire series. So while they're hitting base hits, you're analyzing how the batter swung the bat, how the pitcher threw the ball and how he could have done differently, how all this other shit. You're not looking at the strategy of the game, the strategy to win the series. And each time they do this shit, even your smartest, so-called smartest conspiracy theorists and smartest flat earthers here and there still get consumed by this. Oh, it was fake, or maybe it was fake. Maybe it was kind of real. It was like half real. Like some people died and some people didn't. Or some people were injured but nobody died. Maybe there was like that shooter and then like 10 other shooters. Or maybe it was just that shooter and then like something else. You can build any kind of story up you want. But what matters? What they tell you the story is, because they still have the authority over your stupid ass sitting around talking about, oh, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, it was possibly this, the video says this, but the news says that. Oh, what does this all mean? Do you see the strategy of chaos? Do you see the mechanisms that are being used to maintain chaos, to maintain your distraction from realizing the system itself? Think of all the thoughts that were going along when JFK was assassinated, when 9/11 went down, Sandy Hook, Gulf of Tonkin, Pearl Harbor. Same mechanism, different day. Those are base hits, those are home runs. And things like the racial mentalities are bunts, are stealing bases. You can win an entire World Series by bunting. You can bunt your way throughout the World Series and you'll win. So if you're bunting and hitting home runs and people believe in everything that you're doing, oh man, it's a trifecta. So I bounce around in between the home runs of heliocentrism, the home runs of 9/11, and the bunts of racism. White supremacy was also a home run. They hit that motherfucker out of the stadium. And they've been hitting it hard all the time. For centuries, they've been hitting that thing out the stadium. Look at all the programming that has been going on for the decades that the so-called pilgrims and settlers came over to the so-called New World. Look what they told the indigenous melanated people here, because we were not brought over by slave ships, period. The majority of melanated people were already here, so-called African Americans, fucking period. That is the reason why you have to have the propaganda of pickaninny, coon, nigger, and all that other bullshit to psychologically bunt you into submission, to bunt you into your own grave every fucking day of your life. Lynching somebody, that's a home run. Lynching 38 people, that's a home run. Whether they're dark people, black people, or Native Americans. It doesn't matter to them because the strategy is to win the World Series. They don't give a shit how they look while they're doing it. Call them mentally ill all you want. Who still owns these military bases? Who owns these oil fields? Who owns the Federal Reserve? Who owns your little funky ass in your workplace environment? Does it only relate to race? No. Was race used to build this empire? You better fucking believe it. That's my point. Since I'm talking about the empire, I will always talk about the strategy of how this empire was built. And if you think that racism was not used to build this empire, you are living in a fucking cloud. And if you think up in that cloud that the people who are talking about racism and the way it's still being promoted throughout this game, this chess game, this board of confusion, if you think that people are wrong for referencing this information, then you haven't seen the entire strategy of this game, this series, this mind control program. It's not about always hitting home runs. It's not about only the home runs. It's about every pitch, every thought, every base hit, every bunt, every stolen base, every defensive play. Every part of this series, every part of the game is important. And if you want to sit there and tell me that racism isn't important. Now, Avi, like I said, and I had to keep saying this over and over again because for some reason people just don't get it. For people who have already processed the simplicity and the complexities of race in this experience, I'm not talking to you. I don't even think that way. When I mention this information, I'm mentioning it for the people who are still being subjected to the authority of racism, as it's being promoted as a weapon. When I say I don't think that way, I don't think that way as in reference to the weapon, the weaponization of it. So if I mention white supremacy, I'm going to get a comment in the comment section, you know, black supremacy exists too. God, I mean, come on. Constantly, over and over again, living in the game. Of course, black supremacy is going to exist. Whatever kind of supremacy is going to exist, because the idea of supremacy exists in the first place. The illusion of authority. But do you have an entire empire that was built on black supremacy that is in the modern world right now? No. The empire that exists today was built by illusions. Yes, you can trace it all the way back to the kings and the queens in Egypt. But when they joined forces, Greek, Rome, and Egypt, when Egypt started to fall, that's when it started to spread out, and people said, we're gonna have to take that same strategy that was done in Egypt and Greece and Rome, and we need to go take this over to this new world they call the Americas. We need to set up shop there. We need to set up some bases, build some stadiums, and start hitting some fucking home runs. How's that? What do you guys think? Good? All right, let's do it. Keep the bunts going. Get those bunts going hard. put that propaganda out there. Yeah, just call them primitive. Just tell them they're primitive and savage because they don't have a house like this. They don't wear clothes like this. Just do it. I'm telling you, it's going to work. Show them the book. Show them the guns. Show them, how civil you are. You have guns, you have weapons, but you're not going to. You only use them when it's right, when it's just. Just befriend them. And then when the time is right, we'll just genocide, massacre, slaughter them, and steal their land. What? You have a problem with that? Anybody who has a problem with this, just go ahead and meet. Stand out in the back, and we'll send somebody out there to talk to you. Boom, 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 done. Taken out. Anybody else have a problem? No. Of course not. Of course you don't have a problem. You're going to play the game, right? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, master. We're going to play this game. Yeah, it's fine. It looked good to me. Sounds good. I'm not trying to get, lynched on no tree. I'm not trying to get shot up. The game looks good. I like it. I'm going to play the game. Let's go. This is the new world. Question. What do you mean by, what is the word new? Yeah. Oh, this is our new world. What does new mean? It means that the way we live life has not been installed here yet. So it's new to us. But you could still live here. Oh, okay. It's kind of weird. Their language is kind of off, It's weird, right? You're not climatizing to our new world that well. I think you need to start reading this book. I think you need to start going to this school. I think you need to start wearing these clothes. I think you need to, maybe you should move off of this land, because we could do so many new things with this land. Just move over a little bit. Thanks. Could you move just a little bit more? Okay. How about just a little bit more? Just keep moving. Just keep. Yeah. Just see how new this is? It's wonderful, right? But what happened to our land? You don't like what we've done for you? Look how new this is. Aren't you on the internet? Now you can ride your horse with an iPad. You can charge your iPhone. How far do I have to go back to explain, what is still being done today? Because I tell you one thing, the minority of comments that are coming on to this are people talking about, referencing anything about colonialism, referencing anything about the land itself and this information. The majority is actually people in support who understand they don't have to comment on it because they support, they know what's going on, so they just show their support real quickly, and I appreciate that. But on the other side of that comment section, It stays in that whole, like, either you're racist, you're it's usually just around that kind of stuff, or it's something to do with like society or some shit, or blaming the Jews or the Jesuits or Zionism or the cabal, the Illuminati, the whatever it is. But very seldom you see those people who are hell-bent on, calling the bad guys out. They won't say anything about genocide and massacre of the indigenous people. They won't talk about the land. They won't get into nature. They want to stay in what's comfortable, what's commercial. It's easy to point the finger at some Zionists, some Jesuits, some Illuminati puppets. It's easy to point the finger at them. Why? Because there's posters everywhere. It's cool. It's hip, right? People talk about it. You got celebrities wearing Illuminati jackets. Jim Carrey going on the Kimmel Show talking about the Illuminati, the all-mocking tongue, and all that other bullshit. Yeah, that's cool. That's hip. Is that still just part of the strategy? You bet your ass it is. Why? Because you're not talking about the foundation itself. You're not talking about the land that stadium exists on. You're not talking about the land that the World Series is being played on. You're not talking about the storylines that add up to the game being played, to the chess game being played. You're only talking about the checker game that keeps you from realizing that the chess game exists and that chess game is sitting on a foundation of strategy that predates any of these games. Because when the time comes, when you're born and you die. You live through your life, then you die. Is this stuff really you going to take your resume with you? You can take your Mercedes with you? You're going to take that nice Gucci bag? You gonna take your Facebook followers with you? You gonna take that Instagram page and them Twitter followers? You gonna take that with you? Nope. So what really matters? What matters when you wake up in the morning? Does it matter how well you play checkers? Does it matter how well you play chess? Or are you looking at the game itself and realizing the strategy for what it is? Are you addressing the illusions, or are you just playing the game within the illusions? Because it's comfortable to play the game within the illusions. It's comfortable to play checkers and chess. Why? Because that's the status quo. That's what most people are doing. It's fun, right? You're a crew. You're a community. You're woke. You're enlightened. You're new age. Whatever it is, whatever you want to call yourself. Conscious. You think when you die, are you going to show up whatever it is and they're going to say, where are the conscious people? Where's the conscious section around here? Would you consider yourself conscious? Are you woke? This is the woke section over here. If you're not woke, then you go down there, okay? Go over there. Not woke ass. This is the woke section. Well, I'm woke as fuck. Woke AF. So where's that section? Oh, okay. That section is over there. Don't walk over here unless you woke AF. If you're just regular woke, then you need to go over there. And you're probably not even really woke. You're just like woking up. I love making these words, man. Some of these words be pissing people off. Yeah, there's a section in the other side of this place that it's for woke people. It's a special section. It's special. Welcome to the woke afterlife. You made it. What makes you woke? What did you do with your life that made you woke? Oh, the Illuminati. Oh, okay. Conscious. Sacred geometry. Got it. All right. What else? Chakras. Oh, good. That's nice. Good job. High five. What else? Compassion. Need that. Can't be woke without that. You have your Ankh. I got my Ankh. Can't be woke without an Ankh. Now, is the Ankh less than 5 inches? If it's less than 5 inches, yeah, you're not as woke as you think you are. Is it gold? Does it have crystals on it? Oh, okay. Well, maybe we can work something out. What else? Melanin? Oh, got it. Woke. Man, you did good. You're up there on the woke scale of woke achievement. Let's see. What else is there? Did you get into heliocentrism, and did you believe that you lived on a ball? I was looking into that information towards the end, but I just can't. I don't know. Something just wasn't right. I just really I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid, and I love NASA, and when I went up in the plane, I could see the curve, I could see it. So, I mean, and I've watched NASA videos where they show you the curve. I mean, it makes sense to me. So, all right, well, we'll just write down, looking into it. Is it? It's not a globe? I can't give you that information, It's kind of already complete, and it's really not up to what I say. It's based upon what your experience was. Did you enjoy living on a globe? Did you believe that? Okay. Did you enjoy living on a flat earth? Did you observe that? All right. See somebody who's in this side of the page, this is your scorecard. This is how woke you are, sir. And this is how woke as fuck looks. This is the score of woke AF. And this is the score of mega woke AF. And then this is the score of ultra woke AF. So, you're somewhere around woke moving into woke AF. And, So good job. So what do you get? Oh, here is a sticker. Gold star. Everybody gets a gold star. You got it. Boop. Right on your scorecard. You did it. So does this mean that I'm woke or woke as well? Oh no, everybody gets the gold star. You did it. Good job. So it really doesn't matter what I call myself as woke or no, because it's very complex. It's a complex system of your soul journey, your experience, what you've chosen. A mixture of your free will and it's a really complex system. You'd have to read the entire instruction manual of this experience, and that can take an entire lifetime. Ha! Gotcha. You see what I'm talking about. But ultimately, gold star. Good job. You did it. What's next? Oh, just right through that door, and now you're gonna have a consultation. With who? You'll see. Just take your gold star and be on your way. Good job.